Today's just gonna be like a really casual, unstructured like chat because I need to think through this and I need to chat through this to think through this. I am a big fantasy fan. If you've watched any of my channel, then you will probably know that. Fantasy is what I mostly read. I read other stuff too, but I do read a lot of fantasy. And I love adult fantasy, I love epic fantasy, but I have not read any Brandon Sanderson, if you don't count the last few books of The Wheel of Time, because I have finished The Wheel of Time. But I haven't read any of his like own stuff. And that just doesn't seem right. It feels like Brandon Sanderson is someone I should have read from. Like, I feel like I will obviously like his stuff. His stuff is super popular, super famous, and he's like kind of the king of the modern high adult fantasy genre. I feel like, obviously, some people might dispute that, but with how well liked his books are and with how much he's written, I feel like he's just iconic, and I have to read Brandon Sanderson, obviously. But how should I do that? And obviously there are videos on YouTube all about like how to read the Cosmere and like where to start with Brandon Sanderson and all that kind of stuff. And I've watched a couple of them and they were helpful. I don't know how to do this. I mean, it's intimidating. I'm a little scared to start with Brandon Sanderson because there's so much, and I feel like once I get started, I'll want to read like all of it. And I like that because I do want to just like dive in and get absorbed into that, but also I don't want to spend all my time just reading from one author, you know? That's a problem with me generally. I both want to read like a bunch of different stuff to like be caught up on like lots of stuff, but I also want to like just deep dive into one author or like one series. And it's very hard to combine those two. And Brandon Sanderson is an issue for me in that way. And like, I want to really commit to him and read everything and be completely up to date with everything, but I mean, if I was gonna do that, I would have to like pause all my other reading for like months and months because I'm not that, you know, fast of a reader. Obviously, I want to jump in. Obviously, I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to understand what's up. I want to understand the references, but I don't want to spend like all my time just reading Brandon Sanderson because I don't know, that's not the kind of reader I am. I do like to mix it up. It's a difficult thing, but I've committed, I've decided I am gonna do this. I am gonna start with Brandon Sanderson. Not right now, I still have, you know, a few other books on my TBR before that, so it'll probably be in a couple months or something, but I am gonna do it. I'm going to start with Brandon Sanderson. But where should I do that? That's, you know, that's a big question. Now, first I have to say that I do want to start somewhere that's like fairly representative of like most of his stuff. Like I don't want to start with like one thing that's like kind of completely random for him, because I don't think that would be the fairest, not the best way to find out if I really like him or not. So, you know, he does have some stuff that's not fantasy and that's not Cosmere. Like he has a middle grade series, I think, which sounds cute, but is not really what I'm looking for here. And he also has two different young adult sci-fi series, Skyward, which I've heard a lot about, and that I do actually want to read at some point, but it's not going to be my first Brandon Sanderson. And then he also has another young adult sci-fi series called The Reckoners, which I've like not at all heard about on BookTube, but like I feel like no one talks about that one. But it does sound kind of interesting, so at some point I might want to read that one too. But obviously young adult sci-fi is not what Brandon Sanderson is most known for. He's known for, you know, adult epic fantasy, and adult epic fantasy is something I like a lot more than young adult sci-fi, so obviously I should start with one of his adult fantasy works, I think, which means the Cosmere, because I believe all of his adult fantasy is in the Cosmere, unless there's something that I've missed. But I believe all of the adult fantasy that he's written is included in the Cosmere universe, which is why it's scary. Like if he had like one offshoot fantasy book that I could kind of read that one and get a feel, but also that wouldn't really, because I do want to read the Cosmere. I want to read everything in the Cosmere. I want to be part of the Cosmere club. But I don't know how to start. And so I want to talk through that a little bit today. Ramble through this. This is going to be like the least structured video I've ever made. And that's honestly saying something because I'm not that well structured. The Stormlight Archive is Brandon Sanderson's like masterpiece. It seems like most people think that it's his like giant series, or it's going to be a giant series. It's only 4 books so far, but it's going to be 10. And the books are massive. They're like over 1,000 pages, all of them. So, I mean, I am not scared of big books. I'm not scared of long series. I have read the whole of the Wheel of Time, which obviously those books aren't quite that long, but they're still really big books and it's a really long series. So obviously that is something that I can tackle, but having finished the Wheel of Time just a few months ago, I don't quite feel like ready to jump into another like big series. Obviously not all the Stormlight Archive books are out. So if I do jump in, I don't have like 10 books to get through right now because there's only 4 out right now. So that does make it kind of more doable, and then you can kind of check the books off as they come out. So in a way it would maybe be reasonable, because I do think that the Stormlight Archive is what I'm gonna like the most from him. I feel like for a lot of people that's their favorite. It's, you know, it's the masterpiece. It's his life's work, I guess. I mean, he's not that old. He can do a lot more still. So in a way, I do want to start with what's best and what's, you know, most epic. And I'm not a newbie to fantasy, and I'm not like scared of fantasy. So I could probably just start with Stormlight. But I'm not sure if I'm ready. Plus, now that I'm tracking my reading so much, like on Goodreads and for these videos, I get so slumpy when books are super long because I don't ever get like check something off, which doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't pay that much attention to that. But I don't know. In some way, I'm not drawn towards like really long books right now. And that's something I want to work on, but I'm not sure if I should go straight to like a 1,200 page book to break me out of that. So I don't think I'm going to start with Stormlight, which is generally, I don't think, recommended, but I mean, I could probably do it, but I'm not gonna go there. Then we have the whole Mistborn saga. There's the original trilogy, which is completed, and then there's the like second era, which is the Wax and Wane series, which is currently 3 books, but the 4th one is coming out in not too long, I think. I'm not sure about the dates or anything. I mean, so it's 2 eras, but it's already like 6 books, almost 7 books. So it's still quite a lot to get through. Obviously, those books are shorter than Stormlight, and they're, you know, more accessible, I guess, than Stormlight, which doesn't really matter to me. In a way, I feel like I could just jump in to the first book in the original Mistborn trilogy, which is The Final Empire, I think. Sometimes it's just called Mistborn. That's kind of confusing. They're kind of rebranding it. I don't know what's up with that, but I could jump in there and just like start with the original Mistborn trilogy. And obviously the Wax and Wane, like second era Mistborn, takes place like hundreds of years after the first era, I believe. So I could like easily pause in between those series, I think, like without it being like an issue. But in a way, I feel like if I start with Mistborn, I'm gonna want to like read era 2 as well. And then it feels like it's a really long series because I'm not normally scared of big books or big series, but right now I just kind of have a hangover from Wheel of Time still, which kind of scares me off, like big series. And like, yeah, if Mistborn Era 1 is just a trilogy and that's completed, but there is still a second era, you know? To me, they're kind of like one series. I don't know if people generally feel like that, but that's kind of the impression that I have, is that like, yeah, it's 2 eras, but still kind of one thing, you know? So I mean, in a way, I want to start with Mistborn. I feel like that's often recommended to just start with Mistborn Era 1, the first book in that series, so The Final Empire. And in a way, I do want to do that, but also I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to like jump into a big series. And like, yeah, it's not that big of a series, but I'm just being a whiny bitch about series right now. For me right now, like if I'm gonna read a series, it either has to be like a short series or the books have to be short. Which I don't know what's up with that. I mean, I'm not even fully following that because I'm reading The Expanse, which is both long and the books are pretty big, but that's not fantasy, so somehow that doesn't count in my mind. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not saying any of this makes sense, but so in a way, I mean, it seems like it's generally recommended to start with Mistborn Era 1, but I don't know if I want to do that. I kind of want to start with like a standalone, and there are options for that. I mean, in the Cosmere, there are 2 standalones, or they're currently standalones. I believe sequels are planned for both of them, but the sequels are like in the distant future. So I feel like you could probably read them as standalones like right now, and then eventually there might be a sequel. And so there are 2 of those. There's Elantris and there's Warbreaker. And what I've heard is that Elantris is like the first book that Brandon Sanderson wrote or something like that. So it's not that representative of his later style. So it's not the best test if you want to find out if you like his like writing style. I don't know if that's true. And I've heard some people say that it's not his strongest work, that it is like one of the weaker ones. People just still say it's good, so I mean, I don't really know what that means, but it seems like Warbreaker is the better choice out of the two if you want to start with a standalone, because it's supposed to be more representative of his general style, and it seems to be more well-liked, seems to be very well-liked. So I am actually leaning towards Warbreaker right now as my entry point into the Cosmere. And I know, I mean, I've seen things that like you shouldn't start with Warbreaker because there are like certain references to other parts of the Cosmere that you're not gonna get, and like, I mean, I don't think, it doesn't like spoil anything else, I don't think, but still. I mean, I think on Brandon Sanderson's website, it's like you can start in like almost any place. Like you can start with Stormlight, you can start with Mistborn, you can start with one of the standalones. He seems to be very open to a lot of different options. So it really shouldn't matter all that much, I feel. But I don't want to fuck it up because, you know, I do want to read like all of the Cosmere books. And so I don't want to fuck up my entry into the universe, you know? I don't want to have like a bad start. But also, I mean, so in that way, I feel like I should start with Mistborn because it is like what people seem to be recommending. But also, I feel like if I'm like gonna actually make myself start and like actually get going, it would be better for me to just start with like Warbreaker and start with a standalone because it would be easier to like make myself do that. I don't know why I'm being so difficult, like why I have to like make myself start the Cosmere, because I do really want to read the Cosmere. I do really want to read Brandon Sanderson, so I don't know what the struggle is. Like, but I don't know, it's something about tackling such a big project that's just like kind of stressing me out. It's like I want to do it correctly, but and that like puts me off doing it at all. It's like I guess a perfectionist thing or something. I'm not even that much of a perfectionist, so I don't even know what's up with that. I don't know. So I'm thinking I'm gonna start with Warbreaker. I've written it down for like my next like batch order of books because I always order my books in like a batch to like not have to pay shipping. So I've put it down on the next order. That is a while away though because I am just about to receive an order, so that's gonna be, you know, a way off. So if you think that I'm absolutely crazy for thinking that I'm gonna start with Warbreaker, then tell me, I guess. I mean, I think I maybe could be convinced to start somewhere else, but I'm like pretty set on starting with Warbreaker. Like, I'm pretty settled in that decision. I've like pondered about it a fair bit, but I mean, if you have really good arguments why I absolutely should not start with Warbreaker, then lay it on me and you might change my mind. But I think that could be a good place to start. The book sounds fun. It sounds like easy to read. It doesn't sound that like complicated or anything. Not that that's an issue for me. Like I've read like a fair bit of like thick boy fantasy, you know, I'm not actually scared of that kind of stuff. For some reason when it's the Cosmere, I'm just scared. Plus, you know, Stormlight Archive, like yeah, I've read thick books, but I've never read a series where the books are like that long, like consistently that long. It's just absurd to me. Like, how am I ever supposed to get through books that big? It's gonna take me like a month per book. And I mean, and that could be fine. I've gotten so caught up in like, oh, I have to read a good amount of books each month, and that kind of stops me from wanting to read like really big books, because obviously then I'm gonna, you know, not be able to read as many books in a month. And Warbreaker is a little bit shorter. It's still a big book, you know, compared to a lot of books, but it's not Stormlight Archive level big. I think I'm gonna go with Warbreaker. I guess I could be convinced to go with Mistborn, but I really want to do Warbreaker first, so I don't know. This has just been kind of a ramble. I just needed to kind of talk through this with myself, I guess. So I thought I might as well film it. But I hope it was like mildly entertaining to you. I mean, if you've read the Cosmere or at least started the Cosmere, then feel free to like let me know what you think I should do, or like how you did it and like how that worked for you. And you know, where should I go after Warbreaker? If I do start with Warbreaker, should I do Mistborn next? Probably, right? Anything like that, please do let me know. And I'm sorry if this wasn't like very informative if you haven't read the Cosmere, but that's not really the point. It's just, the point is kind of just me rambling through what I'm thinking. Yeah, so I guess that's achieving something. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.